This podcast is sponsored by StockPick. Most investment information is delivered through dense, convoluted websites. StockPick is the only investor-focused mobile app that serves world-class news and insights through short, engaging videos similar to TikTok or YouTube Shorts. Every week, you'll get 15 or more stock tips from Wall Street pros. Plus, their team shares daily buy-sell recommendations from the world's top brokerages, the type of information typically reserved for institutional investors. Try StockPick today on a 14-day free trial. Check out our link in the description below. Now on to the episode.
Class is now in session.
Welcome back to milestone episode number 10 of the 9 Degrees podcast, the number one non-educational but education-themed podcast in the world. We may have 9 degrees among us, but we still don't know very much about anything. So make sure to use your own fact checkers. We'll make sure to try to keep you as informed as possible on the most interesting current events. But like I said, we don't check our facts. As always, I'm your boy Jerome. We got Maddox, we got Jackson, we got Jared back for another week. Remember, you can catch the audio version of this podcast on Apple, Spotify, anywhere else you watch podcasts or listen to them, I guess. I think Google Podcasts just shut down. It's now all on YouTube instead. So the more you know. And if you're an audio listener and you want to be a video listener, make sure you look for that on youtube.com/Jerome Vaz. And make sure you follow our socials at 9 Degrees Pod on everything. And come join our classroom. Class is now in session with Homeroom. All right, what's going on in everyone's lives right now? I feel like the biggest thing that's going on right now is we just got back from Maddox's Bachelor party. Someone put applause in here.
Woo!
Yeah, that was very anticlimactic. Jackson, Jared, I blame you guys. You should have been hyping him up. That means Maddox is married now.
No, still covering.
Not how that works. Not quite.
Oh, okay. My fault.
We're almost
Apologies.
there. We're almost to the finish line.
Apologies.
We're working our way there.
Well, let me ask you, what were your thoughts? Was it everything and anything you could have imagined? Did you have a good ass time?
I had a great time. And thank you, Jerome, for majorly planning the most of it. I think.
Hey, just like Major League Baseball, which we also watched. You know
and
what I mean?
thank you, Jackson and Jared, for attending. I'm really glad you guys were there. I think it was fun. It's these type of things. I think are always a little. You're always like a little nervous. You have different friend groups come together, family members, that type of thing. Even like the wedding and stuff like that. There's kind of like this like uncertainty about it, but it always ends up being a good time. You're just with people you love and just hanging out.
Was there anything that stands out in your mind as your favorite part of the weekend?
Are you wanting me to reference something specifically, or
No,
are you genuinely
I'm
asking?
I'm genuinely asking you.
I really just liked the Airbnb that you guys picked out was really, really great. I think pool,
Beautiful pool.
Yeah, just like comfortable, big kitchen. Like I really just enjoyed hanging out in there with everyone and just like catching up with people I hadn't seen in a while, just hanging out. Like that was, to me, that was like the highlight of it all. So
Hell yeah. Jackson,
Well, I
Jared,
know-
what were your favorite parts of the weekend?
Well, I was going to say, kind of to that point, I know, Jerome, you and I commented on that Thursday when we got in. We thought we picked the other Airbnb.
Yeah.
And so when we got there was another one with like a smaller backyard, still had a pool, but
Yeah.
it was a little more condensed. And then when we got there, saw that house and that backyard, we were like, oh, yeah, I think we made the right decision here.
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
so much better than the other one would have been.
For sure.
yeah, it was funny. We were there for a long weekend, like we were Thursday through
Thursday to Sunday. Yeah.
But it was like, I wish we had more time just because like, I just wish like that would have been almost like if you'd taken like a week beach trip or something.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would have been just a sick, like I feel like I didn't really spend enough time in the pool and like outside and like we could have grilled again. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. So
That
if
was the unfortunate thing. When we grilled, it rained.
yeah.
It was like,
Poured. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clarify, when Jared grilled, it poured.
Yeah. So if you hated the food or loved it, that one's all on me.
I enjoyed it. So
I thought it was great. Jackson, anything that stands out to you?
I enjoy going to the baseball game, which we talked about on a previous episode.
Whoa,
How going to
not the
baseball
answer I
games
expected, but
in
okay.
IRL is fun.
Agreed.
True.
100%.
The one thing that I will say that I remember the most, and given Jared's permission, would love to put a photo in here. We went out to this this like cigar lounge this one night, speakeasy type number, and damn, Jared, You were schlumped, my boy.
It caught up to me on that day at that time. I'm gonna blame the really good gin that was bought. And
the one that I bought and didn't drink any of.
Oh man, it was there for your taking as much as it was
Yeah,
there
you're
for
right.
mine.
You're
I
right.
just decided to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But it was funny. Yes, I was completely, and I like felt myself as it was happening, and I was like trying to like hold myself there unsuccessfully. We'll see. But it was funny. The second we walked outside, I had like a second wind. I was like, oh, okay,
really?
we're good. Like, yeah, once we walked outside, I was clean. But in
That's
there,
so funny.
yeah, that one was bad. Should have drank that free espresso martini that we got.
That's true.
Yeah. Honestly, all the places we went to were all really cool. I was just so tired to like I feel like to really enjoy them. Like I was looking back at the pictures of the cigar lounge and I was like, golly, this place was sick. But like,
yeah,
I was like, I barely remember it. Like,
yeah.
But
I am going to make one asterisk. All of the places.
Well,
every single one of them.
There was the brunch spot that was, did not appear to be a brunch spot when you walked into it.
Tristan, we love you, and it was the food was really good. I think we all thought we were gonna get either or get some. And I don't know which it was.
Or both.
I've been to a brunch spot that had a hookah menu.
That's also true. That was hard.
Yeah,
that was tough.
Well, okay. Maddox, love you. Looking forward to the wedding. But let's get into some gripes that I have. This happened a couple weeks ago. I was going through my notes. Just sometimes I take notes of like things that have happened in life that I want to just talk about on the podcast. And this popped up. So recently, I was driving around on the road, and there was a van that passed me. I think like a plumber or like some sort of contractor. But the name of the company was DCS. Explain to me how you're going to have this big ass like Sprinter van with the huge letters DCS on the side. I'm obviously going to assume there are just kids in the back of that van that are getting taken away from their families. What, are you crazy? Change the name of your company, bro.
So I don't get the DCS reference.
Isn't that the Department of Child Services?
Oh, see, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
That's actually hilarious.
Yeah, and I was just, you can't have a van that says DCS in big letters on the side. And that's all I got to say.
That's funny.
I mean, would you not assume, though, if it really was a DCS van, that they're, like, taking care of the children? Maybe they just, like, went on a rescue mission. Just, like, saved a bunch of kids from, like, bad households and accumulated them in the van, and they're taking them back to the camp.
The camp. That's what they want you to think, Maddox. That's what they want you to think. All right. What else is going on? Who else has got something?
I got something. I apologize. I know not everyone's a car enthusiast like I am, but this came out last night, and I'm really excited about it. But so I bought the special edition GR86 Toyota GR86 for 2024.
Yeah.
And that was the Trueno edition, which is a homage to the Sprinter Trueno that came out 40 years prior. But so this year, or in 2025, they're doing the Hakone special edition, which Hakone is like an iconic road in Japan. And so they actually did this special edition on the first generation of this car. So this is kind of them just repeating something they've already done. But people really liked that one, and I think this one looks really, really cool too. I think the green with the gold wheels is pretty iconic. So I'm really trying to convince my younger brother to buy this because I think it would be so cool if we were mobbing in the two special editions. But if anyone else wants to go join the GR86 club,
Are you? What's the price range? Have they announced it?
So
in this article?
The special editions. So this car is built to be like an affordable sports car. It's one of the most affordable new sports cars that you can buy. So
yeah,
the base model MSRP is under $30,000.
Oh snap!
Yeah,
but
that's
not
right.
Not the special edition,
Right, and then the special edition, you're typically last year or this year, 2024, you're getting into like 35-ish for the price. But you're getting some performance enhancements along with just the notoriety of the special edition. So
I mean, dude, that's like not even that crazy. When I bought my Honda Accord, 2019 Honda Accord in 2019. I bought it brand new, and the MSRP on it was like 33.
Yep.
Like that's not crazy.
That's what I love about this car. It's built to be like affordable. They intentionally do stuff like people complain about the car because it doesn't have like a turbocharger and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And
it's like they're intentionally doing that because that would bring the price point up and it would be like a different vehicle entirely. It's like this is to serve that spot as like an affordable entry level sports car that's still a ton of fun. And I think that's cool. That's why I got one because
go ahead, Jared.
Well, I was going to say with like the turbo, like the car that I don't have a sports car necessarily, but like the turbo on mine, it does have that like little bit of a delay in it. So if I just like slam the gas, it kind of hitches before it kicks in. So I would actually rather have like a naturally aspirated engine if it had like the same power, which, you know, maybe it won't because of the turbo, but even something similar with the same horsepower at similar price point, I'd rather have the GR86.
Yeah, that's crazy. Is it automatic option as well or manual only?
Yeah, they have both.
Ooh, even for the limited editions?
In 2024, they had automatic options.
Ooh.
I personally think that's, you know, if you're gonna buy this car that's like a driver's car and it's the special edition too, like I personally think like you should get the manual, but
hey man, listen, your boy doesn't know how to drive manual, but maybe I'll pick up this car. You know what I'm saying?
You should read the manual.
Well, I mean, I had driven manual before I bought mine, but I didn't
like you weren't good.
Yeah, I don't feel like I mastered it until I just bought a manual car myself and like forced myself to drive it every day. So
yeah.
Okay, enough about car stuff. Sorry.
I love it.
So at the bachelor party, me and one of our friends were talking about real estate commissions very regularly throughout the weekend. So I wanted to touch on this because we've been talking about, you know, the wages and inflation. And part of his point, and obviously I'm a realtor and my mom's a realtor, and so we spend a lot of our time and make a significant amount of our money from real estate. So obviously I might have a little bias. So, but you know, part of his point was the problem with realtor commissions is, well, you know, the prices of houses have gone way up. And why should you be making more money for you're not doing, you know, the same amount of work, or you're doing the same amount of work that you were, but now you're making more money because asset prices are higher.
Right.
And that was like one part of his total view on this. So I was just touching on this, but I was thinking about this, and it's like we've been talking about how, like, you know, we need wage increases for people. And, you know, as prices go up, wages should be consistent with that. And it's like, this is like a built-in mechanism for realtors
that's true.
It's like, yeah, asset prices are going up. That means it's more expensive for me to buy a house too. And, you know, more expensive for me to pay for all the other things. So it's like, why? I don't know. It's just like, why do we immediately look at that and like be like, oh, that's a bad thing?
Yeah, I actually think that's a really good point. Because I was in some of these conversations and I thought similar to him, maybe that it should just be like a fixed cost, fixed price. But I think you're right. Like, I think it comes more from a place of jealousy almost, right? Like, why should your wages go up equal to like prices of assets and stuff, but mine doesn't? But you're right. Like, it all should. And so maybe, you know, this is step one.
It's an inherent feature of commission based or asset based compensation, right? Where, you know, a salary is not that. So you just have to rely on an employer to do that, which, you know, obviously the general feeling in our society feels like wages haven't risen enough with the cost of housing and other, you know, prices. But largely I agreed with a lot of what he was saying, but I think in practice it becomes a lot messier. And, you know, I wrote a lot of in my master's program, I wrote a lot of papers about compensation for investment managers, which is kind of a similar thing where you're just taking a percentage based off the assets. And it's like, in an ideal world, you'd be getting compensated based on like performance or how much work you're actually doing, not just like the prices of assets that just go up or whatever. But yeah, I think in being in these industries now, I think it's just a lot messier in practice than it is in theory. But not to say we shouldn't work toward like a theoretical, like more optimal way to like compensate people. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
It catches you on the downside too. To your point, like if asset prices go down, you obviously make less money as well. So I mean, it's just how the market changes.
And to Maddox's point, during our bachelor party, I say as if it's all our bachelor parties. No, one of your points that you made, Maddox, which I also agree with, is like it's a very inconsistent revenue stream, right? Like you could go 1 month where you make a livable wage, you could go another that you make a lot of money, and you could go some months that you make $0 at all. So anyway.
Right. And in the same way where it's like, okay, ideally you'd get compensated based on the amount of work you do or how like the quality of the work you're doing. You know, sometimes it's like you never like every single transaction is like just a coin flip. Like, you literally don't know how it's going to turn out. So I guess after the fact you could agree with or you could come up with compensation, but you know, it's hard. It's going into a deal. It's like, it's completely unknown, like how much effort it's going to take, how much work you're going to do. Yeah. You know, that type of thing. So
agree. Jared, Jackson, anything for homeroom? How are your lives going?
I want to tell my story for my sort of airport travel to the bachelor party in Atlanta this weekend. So I'm flying from Little Rock to Atlanta. There are direct flights on Delta to Atlanta, but I didn't want to take those because they were too expensive. So what I did to save money is I flew on Southwest. Now, my trip there,
oh my God,
I had a connecting flight. The connecting flight was in Denver, which, if you are familiar with U.S. geography, opposite direction from Atlanta. So I ended up flying about 5 hours plus a 2-hour layover to get there. Honestly, you know, it wasn't even that bad. Like, I got to catch up on a lot of reading. I got to do a lot of reading, so that was good, you know. But some of my friends thought that was a little strange, and I was like, yeah, okay, reasonable.
Yes, absolutely. That's fucking crazy, Jackson.
Yeah, right here.
How much money did you possibly save by wasting 7 hours?
I think
of
like
your
$200.
Life?
Yeah, $200. That's pretty good, right?
Would you value your time?
That.
What's 200 divided by 7? Approximately 30. Would you say your time is worth more or less than $30 an hour?
Well, that's on the assumption that like I was like doing literally nothing. But like I said, I was like reading on the plane. I caught up on, or I got to do a lot of reading. So I finished a book. So that was good.
Hey,
so you didn't answer. Yeah. What is it worth $30 an hour?
Yeah, I think it was worth it. Like, no, I'm happy with what I did. I think it was worth saving the money. But okay,
it sounds like you just want more time, like to yourself, and just like I don't know, read books. It sounds like that's what you want.
I mean, it's kind of like working with what I had. I had a lot of free time, so I used it to read books, and I got to save money in the meantime. Let me tell you about my return trip, because my return trip was arguably even wilder. So my return trip, I was connecting through St. Louis. My flight did not leave Atlanta airport until 9:10 p.m., which is pretty late. Everyone else had left at like 3 o'clock,
especially considering that we exactly.
Yeah. So the flight from St. Louis left. It was supposed to leave at 9:10. Because of administrative issues, I think they overbooked the plane. They didn't even start boarding until after 9:10. Unlucky. And then unluckier even is there was a thunderstorm that came through Atlanta, like probably between 9:15 and 10 o'clock. So the flight was delayed. The flight basically didn't take off until about, 10:40-ish. And then I had a connection. My connection in St. Louis was leaving at about, what time was it leaving? Like 11 Central, I think. And so I was thinking while I'm on this flight, oh, I'm going to miss my flight. I'm going to miss my connection. I'm going to be stuck in St. Louis overnight, or they're going to fly me to Dallas or something. I don't know. Lo and behold, I get to St. Louis. They actually held the flight, the next flight to Little Rock, because there were 6 people on my flight that were connecting to it. And I think Southwest must have just thought it's more economical to hold the flight. So I bet all those people were really upset about that.
Yeah.
I'm a self-centered person. I was very happy about it. So, I ended up getting home at about 1:30 a.m. To my house, and I had work the next day. But honestly, could have been worse. So
just every time I go through an airport, I mean, I could do an hour worth of gripes there of just like the people who just like want to play music out loud, FaceTime out loud, the idiots who go through one of the people, the person who was kind of in the center of this last gripe conversation that Maddox was talking about, he was next to somebody in TSA pre-check line. So like you should know better about like what you like should and should not be able to take through. Guy just had like an unopened like Gatorade bottle just sitting out in one of the bins. Like it's not going to get immediately flagged and cause him to slow down So I just, from the TSA pre-check line all the way to the airport, my like gate got moved like 3 times. I had like these little small delays added up. So flying is not as easy as I feel like it could be, even at like some of like the best airports. So that's just a general gripe. I don't have any fix for that, especially when Boeing planes lose doors left and right,
Listen, one of the articles that I had for today about Boeing, I actually wasn't going to talk about this, but because you said it, I'm going to just bring up the article headline and just get your guys' thoughts. Boeing pleads guilty to criminal fraud conspiracy related to the 737 MAX crashing in 2018 and 2019, and they're going to pay $253 million for that. This is actually part of a even larger settlement that was around $1.2 billion, billion with a B. Part of it is this criminal fraud. Another part is, I think, $500 million is earmarked towards paying the families of the people that passed, because of this crash. And then part of it was for something else. But my question is like, criminal fraud? Who settles for criminal fraud? Also, how does a company get criminal fraud? Who goes to prison in that case? You know what I'm saying?
Well, what I was also going to say there is this really sounds like an HSBC thing where it's like, when does this just become a part of like the bottom line, where you just have like a row in the Excel spreadsheet that's like money that you will give out to families affected. Right. And it just comes off of however much money that you're making, because people are still going to fly Boeing for the foreseeable future until something actually like horrendous happens or Airbus just takes over. So, I mean, how much money did they make last year? I don't know, but I have to imagine it's more than a couple $100 million. So I don't know, though, to your point, criminal fraud, what happens?
Yeah. Agreed completely.
As far as I know, we haven't had anyone come after us yet, so...
Okay, well, enough about Boeing, because I don't want to talk about sad things very much anymore. But I've got more articles. Lots of things happening. We all love Palworld. We've been playing Palworld a lot recently, and by we, I mean Jared. Jared's been absolutely ruining our base because he's freaking level like 36 or something, while the rest of us are like less than 20, and he's just doing whatever the fuck he wants.
I'm just building things that you need before your time. You can thank me later, but
let me build it for myself, Jared. Maybe I want to build it myself.
You can't. I'm giving you saddles. I've given you so many different things. I've given you pals. I've given you saddles.
This is how I know you're going to be a bad dad, dude. Actually, that was crazy. That was crazy of me to say. Honestly, I'm gonna apologize.
Also,
I'm gonna apologize.
You know I'm gonna be a good dad because I remember I've cleaned up so many people's vomit. Yes.
No. What I meant by that was teach a man how to fish, and he can feed himself forever. Give him a fish, and what's the rest of this thing? Give him a fish.
Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Yeah, what Jackson said.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. Teach me.
Okay. Then I want all my saddles back and all my pals back. I am not showing you the world. This is anti-Aladdin now.
Anyway, here's what's happening with Palworld. Palworld, the company behind Palworld, Pocket, what's it called? I didn't write it down. Pocket Pair, I believe, is the name of the company. They are teaming up with Sony to make the next quote-unquote Pokemon company. They just created Palworld Entertainment, Inc., who is going to take care of all of the licensing for merch, toys, all of that type of stuff for the game. Just for the people that don't know, it is currently the second most popular game on Steam ever. With back in January at its height, it had 2.1 million concurrent players, which is just insane, mind-boggling numbers for a video game. But my question is, why has Nintendo and the Pokemon Company not sued these guys yet? I feel like there was like rumblings earlier in this year, and it just like completely fell off. Are they just not able to?
It might be different enough. I don't know. Like this is the nitpicky part of it. It might be like just different enough than anything that like Nintendo has released. But I'm encouraged by Sony getting like teaming up with this, because like the game that it sits like right now, like it's fun to explore and like catch pals and like do all that thing, but there's absolutely like no storyline to the game at all. You can't do anything. Like I remember you just run away from like villains. That's like all you do. So I'd like to see like a story get wrapped up into it. And I'm sure that's what they're working toward.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the intent is there is a story that ends, right?
I would guess. I mean, it's still, to be fair, the game's still early access and still like beta testing. So it's not a fully released game yet, which is kind of a different conversation. Right. But I do believe you're supposed to get to the tree of life. I just don't know what's there.
Well, my point being, I would love if Sony brought Pocket Pair into their, Sony Entertainment umbrella and made like a, super flushed out, well polished like Palworld 2, 3, 4, 5. Like I think I would play this game for a long time.
Agreed. And it's got the Pokemon formula in the sense of that you can just add just go to a new island, just go to a new whatever, create new pals. So you can go on indefinitely.
And maybe this will also Palworld will attain the same sort of cultural impact as Pokemon does. Because right now, like I don't think Palworld has their Pikachu. We can name some pals because we play, but like I wouldn't say there's any like big prominent pal. I don't know, what is it? Lamball? I don't think so.
Nightwing, baby.
No, I agree with you, and I think some of this licensing stuff that they're working on will actually probably help a lot. Like think about like in Tokyo, they've got like Pokemon centers, and they've got all the merch, all of the everything, toys, plushies, like blankets, whatever. I don't know what the equivalent for Palworld would be, like what you would call it, but I mean, I think merch is. Listen, people be pushing merch.
Well, I was also going to say, with like, when did Pikachu become like a cultural like icon with like the Pokemon Company? Was it like from the beginning and the Pokemon Company was like, we're just going to ride Pikachu all the way to the end, and then they made the TV shows around him? Or was it one of those things where like a little bit later they chose Pikachu for Ash's starter, and then it kind of went on and it like attained that cultural status? Or
I mean, you probably don't intend for something to become that, iconic, but I think that had a lot to do with it being like Ash's Pikachu, or Pokemon of the whole show. So
yeah, I also do think Palworld can suffer from the fact that like you can't like evolve the like pals as well, so it's like you catch it and then like that's it. So like Lamball will never be the star of Palworld, you know what I mean? Like it's never going to be like it can evolve into this crazy thing like a Magikarp to a Gyarados. So that's a little bit of a limitation, but maybe they add that on later.
And actually, go ahead, Maddox.
I mean, I was just gonna say, what would be like the grounds for the lawsuit? Like, does Pokemon have like a patent on like the concept of catching these creatures in balls and like
on catching balls? Pause, buddy. So I actually looked into this a little bit because I wanted to understand. Apparently, you cannot have trademarks or patents on general ideas. So, for example, creating a game where you battle monsters and you can catch them, you can't have a patent on that. You can specifically have a patent on the character design and what the characters look like, and stuff like that. And so maybe that's where the line is, and none of the pals themselves are too much like Pokemon yet. I mean, I think it's a little bit of a gray area still, because like in my personal opinion, like Grizzbolt is very clearly like a combination of Pikachu and like an Electabuzz. But I don't know. So that's where the gray area becomes, and that's, I think, the only thing that they could hold up to. That being said, Palworld could just ditch all of the pals that they currently have and actually come up with like completely brand new designs and still have a game and still function, you know?
And they have some that are unique. I mean, that I don't think I had observed. Now I haven't played like the newest generations of Pokemon, but I hadn't observed previously. So, and I have to imagine, like, has this ever happened with like Pokemon to Digimon?
Dude,
or, like,
I was
Pokemon
just
to
thinking
Yu-Gi-Oh?
that. Yeah, I was just thinking that because even with Digimon, they've got evolutions and they're like capturing them and stuff, you know? Like, so yeah.
I was going to say, like, I feel like you could literally look at any video game or show or whatever and just like look at what came before it and be like, oh, it referenced that, you know?
Right.
It's like, I mean, the game doesn't feel like Pokemon to me at all. And to be fair, I haven't played the new open world Pokemon games, so I don't know if it's similar to that.
Substantially better.
Okay, but so like when I think of Pokemon, I think of like the Game Boy games, and it's like this is a completely different concept, other than the catching of the pals. But even like the battling of them and stuff, it's like a completely different dynamic. Right. So I don't
completely agree.
Other than if they really just if they copied designs directly from Pokemon or names or something, I could see that. But otherwise, I think that the game is, you know, very distinct from the Pokemon games.
Yeah. Well, moving on to our next topic, let's talk about finance and things happening in the stock market. So I thought this was interesting. There has been a bipartisan bill coming out by Senator John Ossoff. I don't know where he's a senator from, but he announced a bipartisan bill. Oh, is that right? Georgia? Okay. Damn, that was quick. You were quick with it. That's insane.
Yeah, about your Ossoff if you're in Georgia.
Well, I was going to say, we saw the signs.
Oh, I don't know why I said that like that right now. I don't know what you're talking about. I very much wanted to pretend like I did know. I have no idea.
John Ossoff signs.
Yeah, whatever. When we were down in Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah,
the devil signs goes down to Georgia, you know?
There were, I don't know which of us is that, but there were signs scattered around about.
Well, so that's actually interesting. So if he's from Georgia, would we assume that he's likely a Republican senator? Jackson?
He's a Democrat. They have two Democrats in Georgia, actually.
Wow. Okay. So I just know nothing about nothing. That's what I've found out. Anyway, bipartisan bill to ban all stock trading by members of Congress. So back in 2021, he actually put all of his own stock portfolio into a blind trust that he has no control over. He is saying that they should not be able to trade at all. I actually personally wouldn't even take it that far. I think like ETFs are okay, or like mutual funds are okay. It's the individual stocks that in my opinion become problematic. But so here's what the legislation says. It would immediately ban all members of Congress from buying stocks and prohibit them from selling stocks 90 days after enactment. Okay. Then it goes further to say spouses and dependents are also banned from trading stock starting March 2027. And then also require all members to divest from all covered investments starting in 2027. So there is a little bit of a buffer window that, you know, they don't have to sell their entire portfolios until 2027. But after 2027, they're not even allowed to have a portfolio. What do we think? Reasonable? Not reasonable?
I think this is reasonable, and I think it's been a long time coming with the Nancy Pelosi thing.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Congress people, they have what's the average salary of a congressperson?
Like $100,000 a year.
100. Yeah, 100 something.
Oh, okay,
but like
that's less than I thought.
But they're all very wealthy. They're making tons of money outside. Every time they have a speaking engagement, it's like, you know, a 20,000 feet for the notable ones, you know. Like I bet you Nancy Pelosi's speaker fee is probably like in the 100,000s for a single speech.
Well, so you can build incredible wealth just using low cost, you know, funds. So I think it's perfect. And honestly, it's like for the average person, the recommendation is to not be speculating on individual stocks anyway. So I don't see why, if you're choosing to be, you know, a public servant, why you can't, you know, for the sake of maintaining integrity in the markets, like that seems like a perfectly reasonable like sacrifice. And I don't know, does this say anything about options?
Yes. So all covered investment.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that Congress people, should be able to invest in ETFs or mutual funds, and that's perfectly sufficient for giving them the opportunity to build wealth in the markets. Yeah. And I also think that I lost my thought. But
well, okay, I think one of the biggest problems with
Jackson, what are your thoughts?
Congress right now and like politicians in general is like their general disconnect from the everyday person. I mean, a lot of the media coverage right now is talking about how the two presidential candidates are both like around the age of 80, which is quite old, And I mean, when you look at this stock thing, most Americans, they don't trade in stocks, And so whenever you have your Congress people who are, in some cases, Nancy Pelosi, using their positions in Congress to gain an edge on trading in stocks, it just sort of is a culmination, it's an exacerbation of like the American people losing trust and like being cynical of politicians. So I think this is a long time coming. I mean, one of the awkward things about this is that in order for this to get banned, it would have had to have been passed by the Congress people themselves. So I'm glad there's finally a bipartisan push to do that. I think it's funny how it's not going to go into effect until after like 2 elections from now, but better than nothing.
Well, clarification, they will not be able to buy stock immediately. It's just some of the other things are getting pushed off, but immediately they will not be able to buy stock. And a couple things on Nancy Pelosi. I think a couple episodes ago, we talked about how she's no longer in Congress. That it was an incorrect statement. Correction, she stepped down as the Speaker of the House. She is still in Congress. In 2023, she made 65% on her stock portfolio. There's also a senator or representative from Tennessee, Mark Green, who in 2023 did 122% on his portfolio returns. And then another one, Josh Gottemeyer, who is currently the most active trader by volume in the stock market that is in Congress. And he's from New Jersey. And in 2023, he did 25%, which honestly isn't that crazy based off of the S&P return in 2023, but still shouldn't be doing it.
My thought was if it's really important to give Congress people like the ability to make money off individual stocks or options, they should be able to just give their money to an investment manager that is going to do those things. But they shouldn't have any discretion over the decisions that are made. If they want to invest in like a hedge fund or something that is going to make this type of bets, that seems fine in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know why. Also, maybe I should know this out of anyone here, but what is the insider information that they're getting that is even allowing them to make?
So I think the idea would be, this is a perfect example, Maddox. We talked about this at the Bachelor party, and we've done an article on it. DJI, the drone company, right? There is governmental regulation in certain, committees going on to actively push out DJI from the American consumerism completely, right? They are no longer allowed to sell here. Now, before that legislation goes through and becomes public, what if Nancy Pelosi goes and invests $100 million in a competitor's stock that we're now going to be, that's the only option, or maybe there's 5 or 6 options, but point being, all those people that were invested in DJI, if it's not going to be sold in America anymore, I think it is a safe assumption to make that you would a competitor would be able to sell way more of their product, profits are higher, stock goes up, whatever.
Or they're just buying puts on DJI.
Sure. I think the average investor is probably not in options and would rather just buy into a competitor's stock or something. But I think it is a fair assumption, fair leap to make that a competitor's stock would go up if DJI was pushed out of America, And Nancy Pelosi, I'm using her as an example. I don't know if she sits on the committees or anything, but she has an active hand in making the decision that pushes them out.
Yeah, and to me that just seems so obvious that that's a conflict of interest and should not be allowed. So like the fact that we're even having this discussion now is like kind of silly, and that's why I'm like, what is it, but
yeah, completely.
That just seems so blatantly wrong. So
what are your guys' thoughts on the piece that is talking about spouses and dependents are also banned?
I mean you need it.
That sounds kind of like that's the whole idea of like the blind trust. Yeah. Like if they're still going to put it in a blind trust, then it's basically like any immediate family members should not be acting on like their whatever information that they have. So it kind of falls in a similar category, I would say.
Agree. And as an ex-investment banker, that's how it worked for us too. Actually, it went even further. When I was working in investment banking, my parents it's anyone in your immediate family. My parents were not allowed to invest in IPOs or like certain stocks and stuff like that, just, because of the idea of potential insider trading. So yeah, completely agree. All right. I got another one for you guys. Frito Lay, one of our favorite companies. Again, I don't know why I say these things sometimes because we never talk about it. I just say shit.
You're fishing for sponsorships.
Frito Lay cutting. Absolutely. Frito Lay, come and sponsor us. If you want me to say that Fritos are the best, most tastiest chip in the world to eat with no dip, no chili, I will say that if you pay me.
I want to get to the point where we all have, the podcast where they have like the Celsius just like sitting next to them. I just want bags of Fritos. We all have bags of Fritos sitting next to us.
Yeah, Frito Lay, sponsor us. But here's something that happened recently. So the current average price of a bag of Lay's potato chips across the U.S. is. Does anyone want to guess? Because I was actually shocked at how of this number. The family size bag of regular Lay's potato chips.
I would guess like $8.50. I would say $8.50.
Wow. Okay, Maddox.
So this is the entire U.S. So like California is the same. Like we're averaging.
Yeah.
I want to for the family size, like the big bags.
Yeah, whatever you would consider regular size bag. I feel like family's the regular size, no?
I was thinking there's like the regular size and the family individual. Size is like,
okay,
or maybe that's like the party
regular.
Size. I don't know. I'm not.
Whatever the regular like average size is.
Okay, I'm gonna say $5.50.
Okay, Jackson.
When I go to the store and I kind of watch these prices, it's really high right now. It's usually $5.29. That's my guess.
Okay. Jared, what is your guess?
If I'm coming back,
if you want to come
now
back,
that I know. So not like the individual bags, correct? We're talking about
not
like
the individual bags.
Okay. So I still hold to like I think it's like $8. I'll come 50 cents down. $8. Yeah.
Here's Jared's really high. But the current average price of potato chips, the regular Lay's bag, is $6.56. Yeah. And as of June 2020, so 4 years ago, that price was $5.09. That is a over 30% increase in just 4 years, which is insane, in my personal opinion, because we all know it, wages have not gone up 30% in 4 years. Jared?
Is this like a COVID asterisk? Like, did like the disruption to the supply chain add into this? Because I did see recently it was like the first month where we didn't have like inflation like back to back or something like that. So does this have like the asterisk of COVID in it? I
see where you're trying to go. I'm gonna have to sun you real quick because COVID was in 2020 and the laws of economics say if there's a supply disruption, supply goes down, prices go up. But the opposite has happened here. Prices have gone up substantially more now that COVID's over. You would assume people are buying more, but yeah, I do think it's like what is that crazy?
I'm confused. Is that not what you said? Supply goes down, prices go up. That's what happened in COVID. There were supply chain disruptions. Supply was down.
But I'm saying currently the prices are much, much higher than during COVID.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, this was sparked because of COVID, but the point is, like, nothing.
But you're saying it's continued?
Yeah, nothing corrected because of COVID. But also, it's like there was also like the most amount of monetary stimulus that we've ever seen because of COVID.
Right.
That caused a ton of inflation. So it's like there was that and the supply chain disruptions. Which one mattered more? I mean, the supply chain disruptions mattered acutely when they happened, but they are largely resolved now.
I think so too.
The lingering stimulus is still caused everything to be more expensive.
Right. I absolutely agree that it was an inflation issue, and now the stimulus issue, I think, is constricting in the sense of that huge amount of disposable income that we all felt is like has gone away, and it's contracting, but prices are still really high and we're not able to afford it. Right. Point of all this being, Frito Lay saw a huge dip in their profits because of this, because people aren't buying chips because they're too expensive. And so they're coming up with different ideas of what they can do. Maybe we can help them out. But their initial idea is to introduce more of those like individual little small size bags of like variety packs, because apparently they sell well, they're cheap to manufacture, and and the margins are great. But I don't know. Anyone got any ideas for Frito Lay?
I mean, I have an immediate one. Drop the price.
Yes, I think ultimately that is what they're going to have to do, right? And that's what they're working on. The problem is they're a publicly traded company. You drop your prices, you potentially risk profits going down and then stock price going down. Maddox.
Right.
Also, I mean, it's easy to just say drop the price, but it's like the prices are higher because all of their inputs went up too.
Yeah.
Like it's all just it's not like they're just raising prices, and I mean, maybe to some extent they are, but their costs have gone up as well. So
I think you almost have to, everyone all at once has to drop the prices of everything, and then maybe, I don't know,
we just like all have like a gentleman's agreement to
let's just go back to the barter system. How about that? I'll give you this potato if you can turn it into potato chips for me. I think that's how it should work. But let's see what happens to Frito Lay. I surely hope that my chip prices are coming down recently.
I don't know that I have any like thoughts on what they could do differently. I mean, it's like just the chips are pretty good, but
make them better.
I've never thought about like, dang, I really wish like they made this kind of chip or something. To be fair, they probably should just stop making like the weird types, because we bought some at the bachelor party and they were not.
Oh yeah, what did we get again?
So like don't invest in like high risk opportunities right now. Just stick to the bread and butter, like
regular
the tried and true classics.
Sour cream and onion, barbecue.
Yeah, like
It was the Cuban, and it just tasted like pickles. It just tasted like pickles.
Okay, but here's the thing. So, there's dill pickle chips, and I like those.
I completely agree.
This had pickle flavor, but it just, I don't know.
It was bad.
I ate them anyway, but I wasn't happy about it.
It had a meaty aftertaste. It had a Cubano meaty aftertaste.
I feel like there's a lot of chips that are doing that now, where it's like they're adding like a chicken flavor, or they're trying to put like these savory flavors into chips.
You know what it is? It's the Japanese influence.
That's actually true.
We're getting way too into with all these like Lad Bible videos of like people trying crazy snacks from Japan, They're like, oh, they got matcha flavored potato chips in Japan. Like, why don't we have crazy flavors here? I think that's where it started.
But Japan does it right. we have not. I don't think we can compete. But
I have a solution for Lay's. Just take the Utz chip model and you're going to be fine. If you do normal, sour cream and onion, barbecue, and because they're in Maryland, crab dip flavor, you're good.
Are you fucking kidding me? Is this why you like Utz so much? Because they're a Maryland-based company?
No, I like Utz because they make good chips. Maddox, can I have a second?
Oh, yeah. Utz are good. Also, I want to say that they're cheaper.
They are a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like it's like, and you can get them at like you can do that with Lay's. I don't know. I always seem like the gas stations and convenience stores and stuff. But
so Utz, sponsor us.
Yeah, Utz.
I would gladly take a Utz sponsorship. Lay's, I'd feel a little bit more guilty about, but I feel like Utz, we could feel like we're supporting a quality brand.
Okay.
So yeah, hit us up, Utz.
The offer's out there. Whoever hits us up first gets the sponsorship. That's what we're saying. All right, let's move on to the last thing that I wanted to talk about for the day. It kind of fits in with this idea of money, and we always talk about this, inflation and things are expensive. But home ownership versus renting. Okay, I recently ran into this blog called Money with Katie. Shout out Money with Katie, and she went into this really deep dive of the quote unquote hidden costs of home ownership. She later clarifies that they're not necessarily hidden. They're just like these unrecoverable costs that you have with home ownership that you don't necessarily have with renting. And so a couple assumptions. I'm going to run through this scenario here and then pause in between to get some thoughts, right? So she lives, I think, out in Colorado. And so she's basing her things off of that. 3-bedroom house in Fort Collins. Oh, also this blog post is like a little bit outdated, so things are a little different now. I've done my own math, and I'll go through that later. But 3-bedroom house in Fort Collins, Colorado, was going for around $2,400 to rent. Okay, I actually think that's a really fair price. But so to get the same quote unquote amount of house at today's rates, you could buy up to a $500,000 house. Let's just use that as our assumption. If you put 20% down, $100,000 down, at today's rates, give or take, you end up around a $2,400 monthly mortgage payment. Okay, so 2 equivalent houses. And she is saying she would still opt to rent because of the opportunity cost of the down payment. Let's break that down. All right. Well, first, thoughts? Maddox, you're the realtor.
I have some thoughts, but I think you can continue from here and we discuss.
Let's get into it. She makes the claim, and it's actually an interesting way to think about it. As a renter, your rent is the maximum amount of money that you're going to spend per month, right? And you know, obviously there's like some stuff that's going to come up, like renter's insurance. Maybe you got to pay Wi-Fi, stuff like that. But generally speaking, that is the maximum amount of money that you have to spend. As a homeowner, your mortgage is the minimum amount of money you have to spend every month, because on top of the mortgage payment, you have HOA fees, you have property taxes, you have potential maintenance that might come in. And then, I didn't realize this, homeowners insurance, significantly more expensive than renter's insurance. So let's get into the numbers of this, right? The real estate market over the last decade, including the giant boom that we've had during COVID and since, over the last decade, the appreciation of homes has gone up about 4.3% annually. Okay. Now, for those of you that are investment savvy, that number should kind of stand out to you, because 4.3%, if you got a 4.3% return on the stock market, that's a pretty year, you know? But the real estate market has been absolutely exploding for 4.3%, right? The average home in the US in 10 years ago, 2014, went from 275,000 to today, 419,000, 4.3%. While the S&P over the last decade, I think this is a little excessive because, again, we've had huge booms in the market recently, but the numbers are what the numbers are. The S&P over the last decade has averaged per annum 15.6%, which is bonkers, which is mind-boggling. And so let's do some math, okay? The average American lives in their home for approximately 13 years before they leave. So if you have a $500,000 house at a $100,000 down, 20% down payment, at today's rates of 6.9%, then using an amortization schedule, go online, look it up yourself. After 13 years, your remaining loan balance will be $316. Sorry, $316,000. So let's run that back. $316,000. So the loan was for $400,000. After 13 years, you still have $316,000 remaining. Okay. Now let's assume your home. Ooh, would it be helpful if I put my math up on the screen for you guys? Do you want to look at my math?
Okay. Yes.
So let's look at this top part here first. Let's zoom in. So average home value, right, increasing at a rate of 4.3% per year, ends up with an $828,000 house after 13 years, right? So if I go back to my notes real quick, that means if you have remaining $316,000 at the end of the loan, if you look right here, that means your equity in the home after 13 years is $513,000. Now let's also take it one step further and say you have to sell the home at the end of that. Their closing costs, Maddox, commission 6%, and it's on the sale price of the home. We're going to assume approximately $50,000 or so is what you're going to, and that's not just closing costs. That's just the commission, the real estate commission. But let's just assume that to be true. You're walking away with $463,000. Okay. However, that is only your mortgage payment. Let's look at your other costs. You've got insurance, homeowners insurance. The national average is 0.6% of the property value. Now, we already know the property is appreciating every single year, meaning your homeowners insurance is also going to go up every single year, right? So it starts at about $3,000 a year, goes all the way to about $5,000 a year by the end of 13 years. Next, property taxes. U.S. average, about 1%. Maddox, you're in Maryville, Tennessee right now. In Maryville, it's actually 1.5% is property taxes. I looked it up on the Maryville City website. So property taxes start at $5,000 per year. Again, it's on the appraisal value of the home, goes up to about $8,000 at the end of year 13. Maintenance, people say, I think maybe if you want to adjust anything, you could probably adjust maybe the first, call it 5 years of this and make it zero. If it's a brand new house that you build, like how much maintenance is it going to need? You could also make the argument that maybe you just bought a used home. It's new to you, but it's not a new house. But for the sake of argument, people say you should have at least 1% kind of saved away for just annual maintenance, right? So same as your property tax, comes out to $84,000 in spend throughout this time. So if you look, your monthly cost, in addition to your mortgage payment, is going to start at about $1,100 extra dollars, go all the way down to $1,800. So your real cost today of owning this home is actually closer to $3,500 a month and not $3,500 a month, not actually 24 like we thought. Do we want to pause? Any thoughts here, or can I keep going? Keep going. Okay. So if we keep going down, I've looked down here. What is your cash on cash return of this purchase, right? Your mortgage payment, that's not going to change. You got a fixed loan for 30 years, right? $2,400 a month, annually $28,800. This is your mortgage. This is the money that you have paid, plus $100,000 you have paid, plus $50,000 in insurance you've paid over 13 years, plus $84,000 you've paid in property tax over 13 years, plus $84,000 you've paid in maintenance over the year. You have paid approximately $700,000 out of pocket. You still have an additional $315,000 that you need to pay off, plus your closing costs at the end of the life cycle. You actually need $1,000,000.6 home value to break even on all of the money that you have spent. We already know, based on appreciation, the actual home value at the end of 13 years is $828,000. Your profit on this investment, of course, you got to live. That's great. Is negative $231,000. Does the math make sense here so far? I mean, of course, there's theoretical stuff that are different probably, but does the math at least make sense?
The math makes sense. I don't really know where I want to go with this, but I just from a fundamental principle, I kind of hate analyses like this because there are just so many assumptions in here that literally will not play out in real life at all. And my major one is just the assumptions we're making on, the appreciation of assets, because assets do not appreciate. We can look at the long-term historical returns of assets and say, on average, you should get this. They do not appreciate in a linear manner like that. They have major swings, ups and downs. If you bought real estate pre-COVID, you hit the jackpot, right? And you can't. These analyses don't take into account that type of thing where. It just doesn't really do it justice just to throw the average there. And because yeah, I don't know.
No,
and also, it's like you don't know if how long are you going to be holding it. The averages can work fine if you're actually holding the asset
for 13 years or whatever, yeah,
or even longer. But it's like that's not reality for most people either.
Right.
5 years you want to upgrade. 5 years you have to move because you got a job change. Like
absolutely.
So the math makes sense. I personally just like, these types of analysis where I like, even though it's like, it's a good thing to like really get into the nitty gritty of all the costs and everything. I think this actually like depicts a lot. Like there's, people, and right now, particularly people just think it's safe to just plow your money into real estate.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's appreciated so much, but it's like, this shows, I think, big picture, this shows there's a ton of costs associated with homeownership that people just gloss over. I think that's the big picture takeaway from this.
I actually 100% agree with you. I actually don't even really care about the return on investment. Like, I want to buy a home to live in. I'm not thinking about a rental property right now. So I actually don't even care about the return on investment. But I completely agree. A house that I walked into thinking it was going to be $2,400 a month, equal to my apartment, is actually $3,500 a month. That's a big stretch. So you need to be starting your, how much house can you buy, including these costs, and then figure out, what's the actual like amount of a house that you can afford right now, But just for the sake of the argument, to wrap this up, let's look at the rental scenario, right? So I do agree with you. 15.6, probably a little intense. Let me go through it, and then maybe we'll change it at the end and see if something more reasonable still yields the same result. So assume that you invest the full $100,000 down payment that you have into the stock market, right? Last decade, so if you did this 13 years ago, or last decade, 15.6%. Maybe I should have found the last 13 years. Probably could have found that. Anyway, gives you an ending balance. Oh, I also included the cost of property taxes, insurance, and maintenance into a additional like monthly payment, or actually annual payment into the stock market, if that makes sense, right? Because your rent is still only going to be $2,400, but your like basically the difference between how much your home ownership monthly cost is and what your rental monthly cost is, I have put as like a additional investment into the S&P, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so you look at it at the end of 13 years, you're going to have $1.2 million is your portfolio value. Then you look at rent. The one big thing that rent is different than a mortgage payment, if you get a fixed 30-year loan, your mortgage payment is always the exact same. Your rent is going to go up. So assuming your rent goes up, I think I said by the same amount that the home value goes up, so 4.3%. If it goes up the same amount, by the end of 13 years, you're paying $4,000 in rent, right? So you've now spent $487,000 over 13 years in rent. Rental insurance, cheap as fuck, my boys. But the point being, over 13 years, you're going to pay $5,000 in rental insurance. I also included when you sell your stocks, similar to when you sell your house, you got to pay for commission, you got to pay capital gains tax. I just estimated this as 15% long-term capital gains tax. And then I also subtracted out the initial investment, $100,000. Your profit over these 13 years is $440,000. Now, to Maddox's point, let's see, what is a reasonable, you think? Should we say 7%?
So
not 10?
This is something I think is hilarious because there's no consensus on this. You'll see all kinds of numbers. I mean, I personally think, 15 is ludicrous.
Yeah,
that is not realistic at all. I typically see between 8 to 10, but I think that is mostly people's recency bias.
Yeah.
I think a good, I use 7.5 is what I use. Okay. I think that's based on hundreds of years of stock market data. Like that is in the realm of what you should be compensated for investing in stocks broadly.
Okay. So if we use 7.5, that gets you a portfolio value of $600,000. Let's make sure this is correct. You're paying $89 in cap gains tax, minus out your initial investment. you're also negative in this too, because rent is expensive.
So-
you're not as negative, but you're negative.
So we're just screwed anyway. You look at
No,
it.
no,
Is
no,
that this
no,
whole
no,
thought
no,
experiment that we were doing?
No. You're
Okay,
not
if you
screwed.
if
This
you
is
do, what do you
subtracting
get
out
if
the
you
cost
put
of
8?
living.
If you put 8, does it change? I mean,
No.
still a loss. So I mean, yeah, like if you're doing anything, yeah.
So it looks like you need probably 9, 5, or 10 to make.
If you're assuming 10,
a
I
return.
think I just don't think that's not realistic. In recent history, it has been, but if you look long term, like that's not the rate of return that you should expect on the stock market.
So, I mean, I think this exercise is a great way to show exactly what Maddox said. Analysis like these, they don't really mean anything or work. But the whole point of all of this is essentially just to say, hey, if you want to buy a home, you should really be considering all these unrecoverable costs. There are a lot of unrecoverable costs associated with owning a home that people oftentimes just ignore.
Yeah, I was gonna say I completely agree with that point. I just find it hilarious that you said the point of this whole exercise was to show you that this exercise was futile. Like you did all this work to make no point. But
to all the people listening, don't use our numbers to make your own personal finance decisions. Remember, we get things wrong. But yeah, just understand that there are. I think this was a good proof of concept that things are more expensive than you think, which is that feels bad. But that's life.
That being said, Jared, I love doing analysis like this. I'm not even gonna lie. I wasn't even gonna do this. I started reading this blog post and then I was like, let me just run with this because I just love playing around with numbers on Excel. I don't know why.
If it makes you happy, baby, go for it.
Yeah, I think though that I think in our society, everyone is so focused on home ownership, which there are definitely benefits to it. But I also think that because of that, people think that if I'm renting, I'm literally just throwing my money away, you know, where I could be getting it into an asset. And there's some truth to that too. But also it's like, you can think of it differently. Like, okay, how many subscription payments do you have?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you're just paying each month and you're getting a service, you're using something out of that. It's like, okay, I'm just paying a subscription for housing. That's a very important thing. And I think this shows that there are alternate strategies where, you could rent and then invest in something else, and that could potentially result in a better outcome than if you had just purchased a house. I think where that gets tricky is, and so I've kind of adopted this strategy mostly because we've just kind of not really known where we wanted to settle down. So, I've just said like, let's just rent, and I'm going to invest in other opportunities that I think are higher returning than real estate, crypto, stocks, my businesses, things like that. And to be fair though, none of those could work out,
Right.
So that's a risk you're taking. But also, what is the discipline of the average person to say, oh, I'm going to rent and then also invest this extra capital because I'm not being forced to invest into real estate via a mortgage payment.
Yes.
I think that's where it gets a little bit sticky because I kind of have found that any money that you might be saving from renting, like, is it actually going to get put into an investment account, or is it going to be used on additional consumption?
Absolutely. Or maybe you're in a situation where you don't have that. It's not even a question of can I rent, can I own? Yeah. It's like I have to rent because I can't own because I don't have the money,
Right. But I think this is good. I think it just shows some differing, like, shedding light on like some differing like perspectives on housing and that type of thing. So, and
if you want me to do this type of analysis for you, send me $1,000 and we'll make it happen.
Yeah. Also, Jerome, while you were doing that, I looked up the Baltimore City taxes, and it's like 225%.
God damn, dude. Property tax?
I know.
That's crazy. And some states even charge property tax on vehicles, which crazy.
South Carolina.
This podcast is sponsored by StockPick. Most investment information is delivered through dense, convoluted websites. StockPick is the only investor-focused mobile app that serves world-class news and insights through short, engaging videos similar to TikTok or YouTube Shorts. Every week, you'll get 15 or more stock tips from Wall Street pros. Plus, their team shares daily buy-sell recommendations from the world's top brokerages, the type of information typically reserved for institutional investors. On top of that, StockPick offers great value for money. Compared to alternatives like Seeking Alpha or The Motley Fool, the price point is far more accessible. It works out to just $1.50 a week versus up to $115 per week on some of those other platforms. They also recently went live on BMO Investor Line, which is BMO's stock platform. And so you can keep up with the market 3 times daily with market update videos directly within the Investor Line app. Try StockPick today on a 14-day free trial. Check out our link in the description below. Now on to the episode. This podcast is sponsored by And Collar. And Collar is an affordable men's clothing company where products are sustainably made with the equivalent of 15 recycled plastic water bottles. Their shirts have 4-way stretch, which are machine washable, liquid repellent, and wrinkle and stain resistant. You can go to andcollar.com right now and get 15% off using code 9degrees. All caps. That's 9 degrees for 15% off. Thanks to And Collar. If you want to join the conversation with us as things are happening, come and join the Discord. The link will be in the description below. It's completely free, and you'll get our free advice, thoughts. If you want me to, analyze your housing situation, make sure you join the classroom on Discord, and maybe, just maybe, we'll respond. Thanks, guys, and join that Discord. Welcome to Recess, our segment where we talk about our funniest findings on the internet, dumbest memes, things that we can find, things that just came across our feed this week, across Twitter, Reddit, Facebook. I don't know. Does anyone use Facebook still? Probably not. Who's got something this week? I think Jackson does. Jackson, what's going on?
On TikTok or other platforms, do any of you ever see the videos from Etymology Nerd? He's a guy who just talks really fast about the etymological histories of words. Well, there's my shout.
I can't even say etymological.
I highly recommend him. Yeah. But I have a pop quiz related to a video of his that I saw. So
Ooh.
I want you all to think about this. The word podcast is a portmanteau of 2 words. Can you think or can you name which 2 words? Which means it's a combination of. It's a shortening of 2 words pushed together. So can you name what those 2 words are?
Can I ask a question first?
Yes.
Is it portmanteau or portmanteau?
It's one of the 2.
Oh, okay.
Or one of the toe.
We never said we had fact checkers on this show.
Yeah, I was just making sure. I just wanted to make sure if I was saying it wrong.
We actually said the opposite of that.
You can work together.
On the show.
Yeah. You can work together,
so
by the way.
Podular.
Podcast is podular? That's ridiculous.
Well, the cast is broadcast.
Podium.
Ooh, I actually didn't think about that, but you're absolutely right. It's broadcast. Podium broadcast.
Mm.
Podium. Yeah,
that could kind of make sense, though. That could kind of make sense. What other words start with pod? And why pod? Podium would make sense because you're talking.
Yeah, and you're usually sitting down around something.
Maybe.
How's this going to work? Do we ask Jackson and he tells us yes or no, or do we have?
I think we need. I think between the 3 of us, we come up with a final answer, and then we say locked in, and then Jackson just tells us right or wrong.
Okay.
I think potentially one other scenario is it could be audio broadcast, and it was shortened to oddcast, and then that just sounded bad. So as a homonym, they called it podcast.
Well, it's the portmanteau. You do need both sides.
All right, I'm gonna jump in here. And
No. Broadcast. Is broadcast just not another podcast word?
No, it's broadcast.
I don't think so.
What?
Yeah. I don't think it's a portmanteau. I think it's just
Maddox.
a straight word.
Yeah,
Okay.
Maddox, you dummy. That was a crazy question to ask.
I'll give you a hint. The word podcast entered the lexicon in the mid-2000s.
That does nothing for me. I'm not going to lie. I'm perfectly fine to lock in podium broadcast. I don't know what else pod could be.
Give me something better than podium.
So I'm just going to jump in. So the pod, it actually comes from iPod because podcasts are sort of like remote
Yo,
mobile
what?
talk show kind of things. So and what he noted in his video was that it's interesting how the word podcast comes from iPod, whereas we don't really say iPod anymore. So podcast lives.
We don't even have
the
them.
word iPod is like no more. We don't say it anymore. So I thought that was interesting.
Insane.
So is broadcast the other half of the
iPod
word?
broadcast.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
It's absolutely insane to me that Apple has such a command on our society that they are out here creating words. That's crazy.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I've got one for you guys. So we were talking about Frito Lay earlier, and this just fell right into my lap for this week. So this is a man on TikTok. I'm going to share screen here. Who, you know how if you order from Walmart, you can like pick up curbside, and then you can also apparently there's like a reorder all button.
Oh, I didn't know that. I knew the curbside, but
okay. Well, there's a reorder all button. And so this guy is telling us his experiences over the last couple years.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like I'll go be sick. I just like looked through my Walmart history, and I found this like Walmart order from 2 years ago for the whole month worth of groceries. 45 items cost $126. A whole month of groceries just for me, basically. But I did notice this reorder all button, and I wanted to see how much it would cost now. Now, this order of 45 items for 1 month would have cost $414. That is 4 times more. How the fuck? How? Like, what?
That is pretty
Isn't
crazy.
that crazy? 4 times more?
What was the time frame again?
4 years.
So like,
oh
wow.
wait. Sorry, not 4 years. Over 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's even worse.
Yeah,
That's insane.
yeah. 400% from $126 to $414.
Are you guys familiar with the Big Mac index?
No, but I'm interested. This sounds funny.
It was just a thing we always talked about in our econ courses. It just is a way of measuring inflation by looking at the price of a Big Mac over time. But this is like a cool, like these. I mean, a lot of grocery stores do this now, I think, where you can just order something and then, or like DoorDash or Instacart or whatever. This is kind of like a cool way to keep tabs on inflation, you know?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously ridiculous. But
do we know what the price is? Do we know how much it's gone up?
I mean, we could Google it. Let me pull it up.
Well, as you're Googling that, do we think that the price increase is because Walmart and other related services are charging more for like the online aspect of ordering food? Or do we think it's legitimately, because like we talked about the Frito Lay thing and it hasn't gone up 4x, right? So is it just Walmart is charging more to provide that service? Is that what it is?
I think that's gotta be part of it. For sure. Like, cause things like Uber Eats, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's got to be part of it.
Yeah, it's 4 times more to order it, and I went to Harris Teeter today and got $10 off because I did more than a $75 purchase. I'm just saying, get that online Harris. Yeah,
hold up, explain.
If you have the eVic card and you use it, you get $10 off any purchase over $75.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's
so
actually crazy.
You gotta aim for that 80 mark. That's where you live and die.
Because then you get under 75.
Yeah, exactly.
Funny. All right, I'm gonna give Maddox a second to find the thing.
The Big Mac. It's funny. That reminds me of like the Waffle House index. I don't know if it's called the Waffle House index specifically, but it basically is like grading the severity of storms based on how like open Waffle House is. Have you ever seen that before?
Anybody? I have not.
That's cool too.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be able to like find the official one. I mean, I found one website that I needed to have like a login for or something, but I mean, we don't really need it. We know it's quadrupled over a span of a few years. I think, I don't know. Jerome's the one frequenting the McDonald's.
Yeah, no, that's true. Okay. I got one more thing that I might have to cut out because of the content, but I just want to tell you guys, so I'm going to tell you guys. The thing that I can tell everyone, as of yesterday, Eminem just dropped his 12th studio album, The Death of Slim Shady. And it is incredible. I think all of you should listen to it. It's a legitimately incredible album. He brought back some of those old 2000 sounds. There's one song he literally brought out of the vault, recorded back in 2004, and he just, upped the production a little bit. Style. And it sounds great. Taylor Swift style, exactly. And the album is incredible. It's a concept album where the entire concept is like Slim Shady is too much for current day. And he is saying crazy shit. He's using the R word everywhere. But essentially saying Slim Shady needs to die. Like, the entire album is a back and forth between Eminem, the rapper, and Slim Shady, the alter ego, and essentially coming down to the wire of, okay, Slim Shady, like, it's time to pack it up. Fucking get out of here, But I just wanted to mention one specific lyric. He calls out a frequenter of our podcast, one Mr. P. Diddy, many times on this album. And in this one line,
I don't want a connection to P. Diddy. Please do not draw a connection.
By frequenter, he means he listens to our podcast.
Correct. Yeah.
I still don't like it.
On this one song called Fuel, Eminem says, I'm like a RAPER. Got so many SAs. Wait, he didn't just spell the word rapper and leave out a P, did he? Like,
kind of clever.
Like P. Diddy, but also
pretty smart.
Rapper without a P is fill in the blank.
Yep,
I got so many essays, which is like, Spanish for like homie, but also if you use the letters SA for something that a rapper without one P would do, is getting indicted for an SA, a blank assault. Crazy bars, man. But yeah, anyway, shout out Eminem. Shout out Slim Shady.
You do think it's a solid album, though?
I would listen to it. Jared, you like to listen to just things oftentimes. It is an incredible album. It's a very short listen, in my opinion. Even though there's 20 tracks, it's only an hour and 5 minutes, I think, which is fairly short, in my opinion, for an album. Mm-hmm. Jackson, you seem very pressed by this.
That's pretty average length for modern albums.
For
like over an hour.
For 20 tracks? I feel like 20.
I mean, yeah, but for an album,
really?
It's kind of on the long side, I think.
Okay.
I felt like the average was like $1.30.
I would think so too.
For an album,
but
maybe a double album.
To each their own. I would listen to it. Jared, if you're really interested, shoot me a text. I'll send you the top 8 that I think are the best, and you can listen to those.
If you tell me it's a good album, I'll listen through the entire album. I've been more in a full album listening stage.
Be ready. I mean, listen to it if you have an hour. Be ready for very much Dave Chappelle style shock factor, quote unquote, comedy.
Okay.
I feel like he says a lot of things, one, for the shock factor, 2, because he just can rhyme any word with any other word, and it's just, the wordsmithing is crazy. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to get into it too much. Recommendation for the day. Anyone else got any other recs? Should we give out recs? Anything. You got a book you're reading that you want to plug?
I do want to shout out A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens.
What the fuck is going on right now?
No, I've been reading Bird Box, the Netflix movie with Sandra Bullock.
Oh, I read that with the subtitles too.
I'm reading the actual book. It's actually not bad. It's a quick read, like 250 pages. It's actually it's pretty good. I was reading it last night, and I was like starting to see things like in the corner. I was getting a little on edge. That's good. I thought it was pretty good.
All right. Well, on that note, anyone else have anything that they want to recommend, or can we take this out?
I do internally recommend A Tale of Two Cities to all you motherfuckers.
Well, thank you guys for watching the episode. As always, if you want to interact with us, the professors, talk about current events, make sure to join the classroom on Discord. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel to watch the video version of the podcast. Also got Instagram, TikTok at 9 Degrees Pod. Thank you guys for watching this episode, and class is now dismissed.